Hi, I'm Ashy and this is Crafty with Ashy. Today I'm going to show you how to make this Bama Crimson Tide logo. And these logos, it's kind of part of a logo series that I'm doing. So this is college football, and Bama has been good for the last few years. I am not a Bama fan. I am a Nebraska fan. That's full disclosure. We're not good, but hopefully we get better soon. But I did do this Bama logo because I know there are tons of people that are Bama fans, and it gets cold in football season, and sometimes we need some crocheted goodies to go and support our teams. So this logo can be added to the end of a scarf, it can be added to a blanket, it can be added to a beanie hat. You can basically add it to anything you can think to crochet. And it makes a great gift for somebody you love that loves the team. So let's jump in and I'll show you how to make this. So what you're gonna need for crocheting the Bama logo is you're gonna need either the written pattern or the crochet chart. I use the chart, it's just a little bit easier for me to follow, but the written pattern is also available. The link to this is in the description below at Crafty with Ashy, and it's in a blog post. And you can download the PDF chart or just look at the written pattern there. You'll also need less than an ounce of each of your yarn colors. So I'm going to make the logo the crimson color for Crimson Tide, and then the background is going to be this ivory color. And then scissors, something to cut your yarn, and I use yarn needles typically to weave in my ends, so I have my yarn needle here. So we're going to start by just making a slip knot. And if you don't know any of these terminologies or stitches that I'm using, I do have a link in the description to my crochet stitches and crochet terminology playlists, where you can look at 30-second to a minute videos and learn how to do all of these things. So this is pretty straightforward. It's all single crochets. You need to know how to slip knot, chain, crochet into the foundation chain, and then change colors. That's pretty much it with single crochets. And then we're just gonna start with counting the number of stitches across. So there are 18 stitches across, and we're gonna be doing single crochet. So that means we need to add one for our foundation chain. So we're gonna do chain 19. Okay, after we chain 19, we're gonna work a single crochet into the second chain from our stitch. And now we're working on row 1, and we're starting from right to left. So we're gonna do 18 single crochets in the ivory color, starting in the second chain from the hook. So the first chain from the hook is this bump right there. The second one is right here. So I'm gonna crochet into that one and do a single crochet stitch. And then just single crochet in every stitch across the foundation chain until I get to 18. Make sure to count and to ensure that you have the correct number of stitches. (16, 17, 18). Okay. Now we're going to turn and work row 2 from left to right. So when you're following a chart, your odd rows are always going to be worked from right to left. Your even rows are going to be worked from left to right, and that'll help you keep track of where you are on the chart. So I'm going to turn and work 18 single crochets into that previous row, and I'm going to work over this starting tail so that I don't have to weave it in later, because I don't really love to weave in my ends. I just like to be basically done with my project after I'm done with crocheting the pattern. So I end up with just one end to weave in at the very end. Now, I didn't mention this, but when I turn in single crochet, I don't chain any. I just go straight in and do my single crochet into the final stitch of the previous row. Some people chain one and then turn and crochet into that first stitch, but I just go straight in with a single crochet. I find that I get much more even edges that way. If you are attached to the chain, absolutely you can do it. It's not going to change anything. in terms of the stitch counts or anything, because those chains don't count as a stitch. So that's my first 2 rows. Now we're going to start row 3, again, odd row. So we're going to work from right to left, and we're going to start with our color changes to do this pattern. So we start with just 3 single crochets in the ivory, and then we'll change colors to the crimson, and I'll show you how I do that. So again, no chain, just go into that first stitch, single crochet 1, single crochet 2. Now on the 3rd single crochet, you do begin it in this color. So you insert hook, yarn over, and pull through. But instead of finishing that single crochet in the same color, when you change colors, you pull up that final loop and pull through the last 2, pull through those 2 loops on your hook to change the colors. So you do that in the new color. So I'll show you again on the next color change. But now with this, we are doing kind of like a tapestry crochet-ish. It's not exactly, but tapestry crochet-ish pattern. So we're gonna carry both colors along with us the whole time so that we're not constantly cutting and changing colors, because we're changing every few stitches. So to do that, you hold your tails or your kind of working yarn right against the top of your crochet stitches. So you're inserting your hook just as normal into the stitch, but you're also going not just under the loops of the stitch, you're going under the tails or the strands of yarn as well. They're not really tails. And then you're doing your single crochet over them. And we're doing 2 of the crimson. So again, I'm holding those yarns against the stitch right here, and then going up behind them to yarn over and pull through. And then this is my second one. So I'm changing colors again. So I did my first single crochet fully in crimson, then my second one, I start it. Once I have those 2 hooks, 2 loops on my hook, I drop my red, pick up my ivory, yarn over, and pull through the 2. And then I just kind of make sure that those loops aren't all loose and wonky like this, right? So I pull that red a little bit, or the crimson, and pull it down so that it's the same tension. And then I just continue to work over now the crimson color. And we have 6 single crochets in ivory. So I'm just gonna do those 6. And on the 6th, I'm changing colors again. So insert hook, yarn over, pull through, drop the ivory, pick up the crimson, yarn over, pull through 2. Make sure that my tension is equal and do my next change. So 3 single crochets in crimson. And on the 3rd, I'm changing colors. So start it in crimson, drop crimson, pick up ivory, and finish it in ivory. The first few times you do the color change, it might kind of feel clunky and hard to pick up the correct one and kind of rotate them out, but it does get easier. And then that's the beginning of our color changing pattern. So now we're going to turn, and row 4 is going to be worked from left to right. It's an even row. So we're going from left to right. And when we turn, we flip our work over like the pages of a book. This is if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, it's the opposite. And so you'll be turning the other way, but same idea. And when you do that, you're just wrapping that yarn that you're carrying along around behind, and you continue to carry it. So we have 3 single crochets in ivory. And again, on the 3rd, we are starting it and then switching to the crimson, and then we do 2 single crochets in crimson, making sure to change on the second one, 2 in ivory, one in crimson. Now, when I do one, sometimes I feel funny because I'm like only doing half of a stitch, right? I'm just going through once, pulling up one loop, and then changing back to the other color, but it works out, I promise. Okay, now 4 in ivory. And switch. And now we have 2 crimson, 1 ivory, 1 crimson. So I'm going to do that. 1, 2, 1, 1, and then we finish off this row with 2 ivory single crochets. Okay, and then turn, and now we're working row 5, and we're working from right to left. So with all the color changes, because you're constantly rotating those yarns the same direction, your yarn strands end up getting kind of tangled. So periodically, I just kind of untwist them so that I can continue to have that yarn kind of flowing freely for me instead of feeling all tight and tangled. And so you can either do it by taking your balls of yarn and untwisting them like I'm here, or you can actually take your project and just spin your project the opposite direction so that they get untangled. Either way, it works. And I go back and forth. I don't have a consistent way that I do it. Sometimes I spin my project, sometimes I unwrap my balls. Kind of depends on how neat my yarns are. So this is nice and neat, tight wound ball, so it's easy to wrap it around. This, if I had 2 larger like this, I'd probably do the project. Anyway, now I'm on row 5. So we're gonna start with the 5 single crochets in ivory. Okay, so again, switched, and then just do 1 crimson, 4 ivory, 1 crimson, 3 ivory, 2 crimson, and 2 ivory. Okay. And then row 6, we're going to work from left to right. Start with 3 ivory, color change, 1 crimson, color change, 4 ivory, oops, color change, 1 crimson, color change, 3 ivories, color change, one crimson, color change. See, sometimes I want to go straight into that crimson still, but gotta change colors. And then 5 ivory single crochets. Okay. So I'm going to continue, and then we'll pick back up with the video after I get to the top where I finish those crimsons, show you how I just cut the yarn there and then finish the project. Okay, so here I am on my last row. I'm going to do, or on my last row of the color changing part. I have 13 single crochets in ivory, color change to crimson, 2 single crochets in crimson, and then color change back to ivory, and then finish this row off in ivory. Now for finishing off this crimson, I'm just going to cut a tail here. And then I'm going to make my turn and continue to work over that tail. I already worked over it a little bit here. So now I'm just doing this next row that's all ivory, but I'm going to work over this tail so that I don't have to weave it in later. And essentially that makes it to where I already wove it in because I started going this way and then I turned and I'm coming back. So it'll be secure and we won't have to worry about that unraveling. And then once I get done with that, kind of working over the tail, I just continue to crochet as normal for these last 2 rows of my pattern. So just single crocheting in every stitch across. And then I'm just going to trim off that extra after I finish crocheting here. And this is my final row now. So 18 single crochets in ivory. And then once I get to the end of this row, I cut my yarn, leaving a tail to weave in, and then pull up another loop and pull it down tight. And then I'm going to, like I said, trim off this extra from the crimson that I already wove in by working over. And then I'm going to take this finishing tail and weave it in using a yarn needle. I prefer to use a yarn needle to weave in my ends. I just find it to be a lot faster and easier and a little bit neater because I don't end up kind of like stretching out my stitches with using the crochet hook. But if you typically weave in your ends with a crochet hook, that's fine too. And I've tried to look it up to see if there's like a right or a wrong way to weave in ends. And the answer is no, there is not. Everybody does it a little bit differently. You can just kind of work through wherever. You can be really organized about it, go one way, then kind of go down to another row and go back the other way. It really doesn't matter. As long as you're going back and forth a few times, it's going to be secure and it's not gonna unravel. And then just trim off the excess after you weave in your ends. And then kind of straighten it out. And you can always block this to make it more square. And you can do that by just wetting it, reshaping it into the proper shape that you want, and then letting it dry. There are other ways to block too. If you're interested in that, absolutely Google it. There are different tutorials out there on how to do it, but the way that I would typically do it is just get it wet, reshape it, and then let it dry. But there's the crocheted Bama logo. So again, this is the crocheted Bama logo. I think it turned out great, especially, you know, when you're not just right up close to it. When you're a little bit farther back, it gets you that really nice crimson and ivory look. I do like the look of the Bama logo, even though I'm not a Bama fan. But anyway, if you did like this video, please give the video a like and look at some other videos on my channel. I have lots of different content for crochet lovers out there. So thank you so much and have an awesome day.